situation. We're talking about the stock market.
Yeah.
That's my stuff. That's what I'm looking at all day long. I think I spam the group with like certain things. I try not to actually. I'm trying to be very nice because I would
I
put
like when
something
you
every day
spam the
and be
group.
like,
I actually do.
yeah, I like that. Just
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
So we got the stock market going on right now, and so just in case there's some people who are not aware of it, I think the stock market, to me personally, this is my favorite vehicle to invest in, and the only reason why is because for me, it's the only one that I know of where I can take $10 and I can make $1,
Yeah.
right? And real estate, you can make a lot of money, but it takes a lot of money to invest in real estate potentially. Now
And
you're
a
smart, you're
commitment.
savvy, you can get a free deal.
Yeah.
That is true. 5 years minimum. If you
Yeah. Yeah.
probably need to just sit there and say just for the rest of my life. That's probably your whole commitment. So, but also with stock market, man, 5 years too. That's another 5-year commitment because you get a company. If you were to invest in Netflix when it first came out, put $1,000, that's like over free, like 300K or some shit. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things that we got to understand when it comes into the stock market of how we can make money. And I think a lot of it, like we've talked before, is like there's financial literacy, and we need to make sure that, you know, in our culture, I think a lot of us weren't raised that way.
Yep.
But at the same time frame, now we have phones. So one of the things to talk about the stock market is like what's interesting, right? Right now, just today, they talked about saying that the S&P 500 just entered into a bull market.
Nice.
So that is interesting for people. That could be something where, hey, there's that. We talked about it last year where, hey, we entered a recession, technical recession. No one really talked about it, but here's that. But we're considered into a bull market right now. So we're in a bull market. And what's interesting is for the S&P 500, for anyone who don't know, that's like a very gauge of the U.S. economy. And what it is the 500 best companies of America. These are the top of the lines. Like the companies that have been over there for 20 years, they keep changing back and forth. But anyway, so the S&P 500, we hit over a mark a couple of days ago, which is over the 4,200. We were stuck in a range. So we were going between 42 and 38, right? So it was going up and down, up and down. We finally hit it last couple of days. Like, see, we're about 4 or 5 days over it. So it's pretty interesting to know that we're out of that, and that could be something. Now, this could be one where we go right back down to the range, and we can go below. But we've hit 20% higher from the October lows. So that's a pretty interesting thing. Like I said, I love the stock market, man. One thing I've had to do is that I've actually had my daughter sit right on the couch and we're watching CNBC opening bell. Boom. She has to watch that. We had a conversation because she's like, yeah, it's kind of like we talked about, man. Like, I know, like she has to know now. Like we're plagued with information now. We have to teach her.
Yeah.
So we're talking about those things, but one thing we were talking about mindset is I was telling her like, hey, I'm an owner of Apple. I was like, we're owners. And so she went to school and she was telling her friends like, my dad owns Apple. And they're like, no, he don't. Like, he's lying.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, that's a difference, right? We have a small ownership, but we own Apple. Tim Cook, the CEO, one of the best CEOs ever do it. He works for me. You know what I mean? And some people would be like, no, he doesn't. He works this and that. Well, he works for the shareholders. And like what you're saying with the mindset, once you own one share of a company, you are owner of that company. You own a part of that company. And so it's kind of like, hey man, if you're talking about Netflix, and you're like, hey, I spent a lot of money on Netflix. Why don't you become an owner of Netflix?
I think that's amazing what you're doing with your children, man. Just because that's teaching them about financial literacy, and honestly, it's teaching them stuff that we didn't grow up with. I know the hell I didn't grow up with that. It was like keep your money underneath a mattress, basically, and that's just what it was. But that you're teaching that about ownership, and I think that right there is the key component of true knowledge, right? That is real knowledge right there that you're not going to learn anything in school or whatever. But I think that is a parent's responsibility, a negligence, if you don't teach your children about investments or future development, Right. So I think that's pretty awesome. I do have a question for you though. So people who are like Mike is like stock fucking genius. That's what he does. He's like always in the books. He's studying. He's doing everything, reading the charts. So for somebody who wants to get in the stock market, how did you know the stock market was like for you? Like what was like, this is it?
I think for me, like, man, I remember hearing about Warren Buffett, right? I think it was like 2016. And they say like he would just wake up early and read like 6 hours of financials. So I just started doing it, and I really liked it. I grew up really fucking poor though. Honestly, if I'm being real honest, man, I grew up really poor. I didn't the financial literacy that I was taught from my mother, which was taught from her, you know, from my grandpa was an immigrant and stuff like that, was if you're in debt, you just pay more than you owe. So if you owe $10, if you owe $100 and your bill is like $10, you pay $11. Like that's what we were taught. And so I just started like doing it. I'm into real estate. Like I'm like actually in the industry, and I just really gravitate more towards the stock market. So I really just found something I really enjoy, that when I'm putting in hours at night, when I'm studying the charts, when I'm reading books, when I'm looking at research, and I actually figure out so that like it's work, it's the gritty work that you got to do, it's fundamentals, but I still enjoy it. Okay, cool. This is me. And that's what I like to do. Why try to do something else? Let's go all in on this. I can still invest in real estate, but I can invest in the stock market. They're called REITs, right? Yeah. Real estate investment trust. So it's kind of like, okay, well, if I'm in real estate, but I don't want to buy a rental property, how about I actually buy REITs? It's the same knowledge. You got to have fundamentals, right? Yeah. We all know commercial is not going to do very well, or hopefully a lot of people don't know commercial is not doing well. So I'm looking at something saying, I don't want to invest in that.
Yeah.
So, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's awesome, man. Like I remember when I was in the options trading, and I was like, yo, Mike, I'm in the options now. I took this class and da-da-da-da. And you were like, and I put you on it, and then you just took the fuck off after that, bro. You just like, yeah. I was like, damn, this dude knows way more than I do in a couple months. But that's what I love about you, though. Like, once you're into something, right? Mike's a fellow Virgo, too. Just like we're both Virgos. So this is like... finance is just like, this is something Virgos are that's into. It's just crazy.
Obsessed about.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just fucking nuts. But like when you started like getting into things, I started learning a lot from you, you know? And then Mike puts so much people on stuff that's on the group, like things that we don't even know that's going on. He'll send us articles and stuff like that. But these are like no bullshit key turning points in the market and stuff that he sends us, like stuff that like nobody else will be looking at unless you're in the market. This is what it takes to be a good trader, right? You have to do your due diligence. You have to be looking on what's going on. You have to be studying the quarterly, the quarterlies that gets released. You have to then look at your chart and look at when it comes to options trading, your thetas, your betas, your gammas. You have to pay attention. You can't be negligent on terms. You just can't,
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people think, real estate, not real estate, but the stock market is like legal gambling, but it's smart. It's smart gambling. Yeah. If you want to do it like that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's probabilities, right? So it's always sitting there saying like, hey, I'm going to risk $10 to make $5. And if you're okay with that risk, that's cool. It's like real estate. Hey man, I'm willing to put up my 20% of this house to get the 80%. Cool, man. It's all probabilities. The reason why I like the real estate the most, the real estate is like you can get something and you own it for years as tax. There's so many benefits to owning real estate. Stock market, you're not getting that, but the same time frame, I got $10. Again, I can make that. I can make $11. I can make that in a minute, in 30 seconds. I can make it in 10 years. There's so many more things you can do with that.
Yeah.
That if you don't have enough money, right? And so what I've done is in this when I say this, people kind of like give me that. Ooh, are you sure? I took a lot of my emergency fund and I put it into the stock market. So I put it into an ETF, and I did that, right?
Bro.
And so,
man,
and the reason why I did that was honestly because if I leave it in the bank, that's 0.001 that I'm getting in returns. Where if I put it in the ETF I put into, it could go potentially has like a 76% chance it's going to go around 7-8% a year.
Yeah, more than that dividend in that bank. I can tell you that.
Yep.
Right, and then you gotta fight the inflation. You're fighting inflation with those earnings. So if you got $100 in the bank, you really ain't got $100 in the bank. Sorry.
Nope.
And then you're taking a loss with the dividends. Like they're lending your money out and you're getting 50 cents back.
Yep. If you're lucky.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what I did, right? And so that's what I'm doing. And does it take risk? Yes. Mm-hmm. But at the same time frame, like it has to be, I think everything's a risk. And it's just in there saying, well, I'm reading enough information to know that this is not a risk as much as I think it is. And I think they always say like wealthy people do three things, right? They have stocks, they have a business, and they have real estate.
Yeah.
So all three of them, I think, are key. And I think you can get by with real estate but you got to buy so much real estate. I think you
Yeah.
can buy stocks, but you can buy so much.
Yeah.
I think you can have a business, but you got to flourish. So if you do all three, you can pass a lot to your children, right? And then we can talk about trust and all those things. But um, one thing about the stock market again is, man, it's everyone's going to put doom and gloom right now. What's crazy about the real estate or about the stock market? It's held up by 7 right now. They call it the Magnificent Seven. That's the crazy part, right? That's crazy, man. They're doing a number on this one, and if you bought right now, Amazon's amazing company, they had it $86.
I remember.
It's like 124.
Yeah, I remember when I first got into stocks markets. Not to cut you off, but just when I first got into it, I mean, I had Netflix at $85 at one time.
Sheesh.
Amazon was I think Amazon at the time was like, oh man, like 400, maybe $300. It was super cheap. It was super cheap back in the day, but it's just that just lets you know the consistency in what drives it. Like, you can look at these things he's talking about. Like, you can look at Google stock and look at Amazon stock, look at Facebook stock, and you'll know exactly what's going on in the world. No, nope. no bullshit,
So you said you had Netflix at what?
I think I had it like $84 at the time. It was like 2015, maybe 15-ish. Yeah, it was like something like that. It was like $84 or something like that.
It closed today at 409.
That's freaking nuts.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's like, man, I got $100. You can do something with that, man. Like, and that's what I love about the stock market. And I think that's what a lot of people need to understand when it comes to the stock market. You don't need to have a lot of money to start. If you got $5, there are stocks that cost a penny. They're called penny stocks. They cost 10 cents.
Yeah.
There's shit that costs $1. Like, one thing I did was I bought a stock. And so I bought a stock and I bought it and I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I just bought stuff. Right. And so I bought it at 13. It went up to 20. I got greedy, which is a big problem I have. And so it went all the way down to $4. And so you can sit there and say, like, damn, do I take the loss? I could take the loss and I have the tax deduction now for it. But what I did instead of doing that was sit there and saying, hey, it went down. I saw where it bottomed out and bought more of it, where instead of being $13, and now the cost average now is $6. It's now at $4, went up a little bit more now. So it needs to go up $2 more and I'm out the door. So that's really it. Like, on that one, we can actually legit, honestly do those things.
Yeah.
You can bring that stuff down. So it was like, I wrote this book, Unshakable. And this is like one of the things where they said every so often, every like 3 to 5 years, we have a recession. And so what happens is during a recession, the stocks go down. But if you don't take it out, you never lost no money. Yeah. If you bought it at $10 and it's now $2, and let's just say it hits the bottom, it's going to go up to $15. Then what you should do at $2, or someone buy more if you feel comfortable. Again, always talk to a financial advisor. Who do I know? But always do that stuff like that. So you can do those different things. So I like the stock market. Some people might think it's a gamble or it's a risk. And I would say it is a gamble or risk if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you don't know Apple, how much money they have, cash flow. If you don't know the business they have, you don't know the services they have like that. Like, I was researching it and like, you look at Apple and you're like, damn, this is a really good company. It's man, at one point before the debt ceiling talks, it had more money than the U.S. government had on hand.
Yeah.
Fucking wild. But yeah, so yeah, like I said, I love that stuff. I love the stock market. That's a great thing about it is we hit over the 4,200. Now it's to say we're seeing resistance at the 43. Do we stay there? Do we push through? Pretty interesting. But again, AI hit NVIDIA. We were talking about this, like AI and NVIDIA went $100 after the earnings.
Yo, shout out to NVIDIA. NVIDIA Intel. Like, that was my shit. Back when I was doing options, I was riding that fucking damn coattail and fucking Tesla. If y'all don't know, when I did got into options, right? When we'll talk about that, why I got into options, because your boy was in a funk, right? I had to do something because I was just, but I turned $5,000, right? I turned $5,000 into about 65 to 70 grand within a matter of, what is it, like a month or two or something? Yeah. It was something wild, right? But that's how I purchased this a triplex, right? I went in with the intentions, manifesting, right, that I was gonna buy a place off of fucking option money. And that's exactly what I did, right? And then I got the fuck out, because stocks, like for me in numbers, like I just hated paying attention to the bell every morning and everything. It
Yeah.
was driving me nuts, right? So I had to just take a break from it. I haven't been back in options since, but I will get back into it, right? Mine is probably not as much as Mike, but when it comes to stocks, do you agree? Like there is no right way of investing when it comes to the market.
Yeah. I mean, shit, you can get into a thing where it's like soybean, man. There's a futures where you can talk about that shit. Like that's a legit a thing. The futures
Mhm.
contracts for like soybean, legit. It's some real shit. My daughter was like, "Why do I?" We're watching CNBC, and she's like, "Why? What is soybean?" Like, don't worry about that. We're not talking about that yet.
Yeah.
So there's anything and everything you can invest in, and especially in the stock market. If like one of the companies is a number one company for insulation insulin. Over a month, they made over $100. Why? Because they're the number one company that provides insulin. If you look at America, hey man, it looks like they're probably going to not go out of business anytime soon, right? Boom. That's something like that. Like you got to think about it, right?
And there you go. Insulin is tied to obesity, right? They are not in obesity. I think America is 42% obese. That shit has not changed in fucking over 20 years, you know? And there it is. And that's how the numbers, that's how you know what's going on with things. You know, when you look at the
Yeah.
statistics of stuff, tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah. And so there's like I said, there's so many different things. There's so many on those ones. One of the biggest things that helps me right now is I'm becoming more patient. So like
Mm.
Tesla, today it closed at 234. I have a number ready. As soon as it hits that number, I'm buy. It's not there yet. It may not hit for a while. I had one for, JP Morgan. I was like, if it goes here, I'm buying. It went straight up. And so
Yeah.
instead of being like, let me buy now, I'm like, let me wait. It might take me 3 years to buy it. But let
Hmm.
it hit that number. I'm getting more money now. Now I'm having
Yeah.
more stuff like that. And I think that's what it is where you said to say like, hey, I don't have money. I don't have $100. You got $5? Cool. Put $5 into your account. My daughters have an custodial account. So when I'm paying them to watch stock market, it goes into the stock market
Hmm.
and they get to see the numbers go up and down. Hey, this is what it means. And so as parents, what we're supposed to do, right? Like, can you imagine a 9-year-old starts learning about the stock market? Anyone who doesn't have to know anything, if you just know a 9-year-old does something for 10 years, she'll be 19 and she'll just know stock market stuff. You would
Yeah.
automatically assume she's going to be great in life. Like she's great as far as that, right? And you don't even know anything about this. Like people may not know about the stock market. But we know that is an avenue for wealth. We know that for a fact. The problem is we think that the people that make that wealth, they have suits, they have this one, so they're not us. And it's no, um, isn't shit like this. It's in a goddamn book.
Yeah.
Um, and the best part about it, I'm not even creating new things. I just went to Warren Buffett. What do you do? Okay, cool. What's your strategy? He'll tell you. It's in a book. And just copying that guy. So I'm just copying the wealthiest person, one of the greatest investors we've ever known. Is that how it's supposed to be? I think that's what it is. And so, like I said, if you're into the stock market, man, it's fun. Please just make sure you research it. I'm not going to be a person that says, hey, do this.
Hmm.
I said, like, just research it. It's a lot. It's not as intimidating as you think it is. It's grunt work. You're going to have to look in it. I had to go in there and start looking at quarterly reports, annual reports, start looking at numbers. But when I'm putting my numbers in my spreadsheet and you're looking at Apple and it's $1 trillion, your mind starts like, what? All these zeros? Yeah, trillion. Yeah, you operate in billions and trillions of dollars. So for me, that's like, dude, I've never seen those numbers. I'm putting them on spreadsheets because I'm like, okay, Apple made this much, their net income, their cash flow, their debt, etc., their market cap.
Hmm.
So there's a more to it. And so I think if we can look at it and sit there and saying like, hey man, if we look at what people making money, it's not about the suit. It's not about that. They didn't come from rich families. Some did, some didn't. But we have the opportunity to make $1, make $10, make $1
Hmm.
out of it.